Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this man back. It is the incoming chairman of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, our friend Brendan Carr. Brendan, how are you? Good to see you.
No, I'm doing really, really well, Joe. Look, we've been good friends for a while. I've been on your show
Yeah.
a lot. Usually I'm the bearer of bad news, but I got to say, it's been a good little run here for the FCC, I think, and for the country.
Well, I got to tell you something. Look, there's a little more pep in your step, and I can't tell you how excited I was when I heard that you were going to be tapped to be the guy. Now, is it always going to be 3-2? Now we'll keep 2 Democrats, and then you'll add a Republican, so you guys have the majority. Is it always split that way?
Yeah, you're right. So we're 3-2 right now, 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans. On Inauguration Day, our Democrat chair has announced that she will step down. So it'll be 2-2 as of Inauguration Day. The president is going to make me chair at that point, and then he'll nominate a third person to be the third Republican, and that may take, I don't know, a month or so.
Yeah.
And then we'll be 3-2 at the FCC for the duration of his term here.
Let's talk about how you find out. Now, obviously, you're the right guy. You stand up to China online. They go after you. You're very, very direct about social media, its role, what it should do. You're very direct about who should buy radio stations and who shouldn't, and we should find out the money. So the fact that you're the guy, I think you'll clean up exactly what this mess, this bureaucracy that's been going on. But how do you get that? Is it Trump himself? Hey, Brendan, it's Trump. Let's talk. How does that work?
Well, yeah, I won't open the kimono fully up, but suffice to say there is a transition process going on. It's being run by Howard Lutnick. He's doing a fantastic job. Trump's already got a bunch of really good people in. He got good people in last time. He's ahead of schedule this time.
Yeah.
Long story short, I was doing some interviews, obviously, and went down to Mar-a-Lago last Friday and met with the president, and that's where we had the discussion about the job. And then was with the president again on Tuesday down in Starbase, Texas, with Elon Musk and a number of others, and was riding in the motorcade with the president on Tuesday.
You're just hanging out with the president now? Come on.
I mean, he's my buddy. And so, look, as a kid growing up in D.C. area, I'd see these motorcades go by, and I think is the most impressive thing you've ever seen. And so to be sitting there in the motorcade with the president, with the senators, with cabinet officials, it was a unbelievable experience. But look, next step for me is I want to, get together with the president's team as he's continuing to fill it out. And I want to make sure I understand 100% what his agenda is in terms of my own ideas that I'll bring to the table.
Yeah.
I think number one is tech censorship. We've talked a lot about that. Number two is going to be media issues. Media obviously has to operate in the public interest, the broadcasters at least. And number three is going to be just unleashing economic opportunity. Permitting reform has gone nowhere. Trump freed up all sorts of spectrum, and we went nowhere under Biden again. And then the space economy. We have to let, whether it's Kuiper coming online or Starlink right now, it takes far too long on the permitting side for that. And then national security is the fourth main issue that we need to sort of continue to make progress on. I know, as you can tell, it's a pretty complicated, troubling world right now. But those are the ideas that I want to sort of work on, and there's a lot we can do.
Brendan Carr, FCC over on X. It is incoming chairman of the FCC, Brendan Carr, a good friend. We have been talking about censorship and net neutrality and all this stuff for a long, long time, and I just love that you've been telling my audience and me, educating us on exactly how this works. Let's talk about a couple of specific things, and this may or may not have anything to do with it, but when Jake Paul fought Mike Tyson the other night, Netflix, which is an online service, as you know, and everybody watching and listening probably either has it or knows somebody who does, couldn't handle the bandwidth. And when I was asking questions about it that night, I mean, literally millions of subscribers couldn't watch the fight. The answer seemed to be, this is that net neutrality stuff. This is the throttling. Did that have anything to do with it? Because I know that you're anti-net neutrality, and that somehow gave more ability to these providers to either cost us more money or throttle different people, different regions. Was that throttling? Did that have anything to do with what will be in your purview now, or net neutrality?
I don't think this particular thing was. So remember, the way net neutrality operated was, giving the government more control of the ISP, the internet provider. In fact, it was Netflix that was pushing for net neutrality. The issue here, I haven't looked fully into it, but it looked like it was more an issue on Netflix server side, which is not something that would have been regulated with net neutrality or without net neutrality. But I don't think we were aided. The former chairman of the FCC, Ajit Pai, a good friend of mine, Republican chairman under President Trump, tweeted something about net neutrality as a joke. I think that sort of helped stoke people to think that was a net neutrality issue. So I got to give him a hard time about misinformation that he's flaming out there.
It sounds like it worked on me. We've had Ajit Pai on this program as well. He's actually a very funny guy. That wasn't anything about that. I just had a situation where I lost my flagship. radio station, and immediately people started saying, is that because of Soros? You and I talked about Soros very recently. George Soros, and you said we have no idea where the money is, where the money's coming from. We couldn't track it down, and we should not be fast-tracking the purchase of hundreds of radio stations, especially we don't know where the money came from. Now, my situation didn't have to do with Soros, but what is the status on that? You incoming as the chairman, you're going to get another Republican, it'll be 3-2. Can you stop that and at least do the research to find out who's funding it, or is that already done?
That issue is still live in two respects. One, there was a petition for reconsideration filed at the FCC asking the commission to reverse the approval. That petition is live, and we'll see where the votes are on that particular petition. Second, they did finally come forward and file that petition to disclose the foreign interest. I haven't fully looked at that one yet to sort of see if there's more information to add there, but both the actual underlying decision through the recon is still pending, and this other thing. And so that issue is still live before the FCC, and we'll have to see how that plays out.
For those watching and listening, just to sort of, if you don't mind refreshing them, this was a situation where the FCC was brought this idea that this conglomeration wanted to buy, and Soros is involved somehow, wanted to buy 200 radio stations from Odyssey, I believe. And the process that has always been the process is you get to fully vet who's funding and financing it. The last thing you want to do is have China or North Korea somehow financing radio stations in our country, and that's the normal process. If I recall, you said they somehow bypassed that.
Yeah, you got it right. They put the cart before the horse. They came in and said, look, we've got excessive foreign ownership. We're not going to tell you at this point where the money's from. It may not be an issue, but they said they weren't going to tell us. And what you're supposed to do is file a petition, tell us who the foreign interests are. We do a vet for that, national security, other concerns. Then we go through with the decision here. They reversed it. And this was the very first time that the commission itself had ever blessed a radio station purchase without requiring them to first go through that national security process. And they did it right before the election. And I guess they would say it just happened to be a Soros-backed group that was the beneficiary of that. But I think that's still a live issue that we should be looking at.
Well, I'm glad that you're going to be on top of that. It's Brendan Carr, FCC, over on X. Are you on Truth as well, or is it just X?
I'm there every once in a while. Yeah, it's either Brendan Carr FCC or Brendan Carr USA on Truth as well. Go
find him on all the social media, the incoming chairman of the FCC. You have explained to me over the years the role the FCC is playing with social media. When I think FCC, I think about the airwaves that I'm on every day on 170 radio stations. I think about the airwaves that television stations are on as well. You guys don't regulate as much, if at all, cable news or cable channels. So what is the role, the specific role? Is it by the charter of the FCC, the role of the FCC for online social media platforms is what?
With respect to social media, it's Section 230. So remember, a lot of people say Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. Okay, fine. It's actually Section 230 of the Communications Act. And so the FCC can administer Section 230. And one of the things we can do there is we could adopt regulations interpreting provisions of the law, particularly where courts have added immunities or extra protections that go beyond what Congress intended. We also have provisions that allow us to impose transparency rules on a broad set of actors, including potentially social media. So that could go to algorithms and trying to expose potentially maybe even bias in that context. So there's certainly some role for the FCC. Even with cable channels, we're not completely absent of jurisdiction. We do have some jurisdiction with respect to the carriage of cable channels and even the carriage of network channels on cable. So there's some authorities there worth exploring.
So when it comes to Section 230, there are two parts of that section, but this goes to the idea that a platform is just that. It just holds the information. It holds the posts. It's not a publisher. A publisher would say, I don't like what Carr is saying. I'm the publisher. I'm not going to post it. If you're going to be a platform and get protections from liability, then you have to literally be the platform that says Carr can post, Pax can post, Hillary Clinton can post, and we can't decide that this is good, this is bad. We're just a blind, unbiased platform. They've crossed that line a billion times now. With you in charge, can there be some enforcement or some regulatory moves that say, I see that, or because you said you got the algorithms, I see that you're squelching Carr and you're squelching Trump, you're not squelching, Harris and Biden. Can you do that?
There's a lot we can do. So as you indicated, Section 230 does two things. One is 230C1 says basically if you leave someone else's speech up on your platform, you're not liable if it happens to be libelous or otherwise actionable speech. That's fine. I like that provision. That's what we call a pro-speech provision. It results in more speech being hosted. But the problem is a second part of it, C2, that basically courts have interpreted as you can censor people at will as well. And so I think that's where we need to look at tightening it. Let's keep incentives to leave speech up. Let's create disincentives to take speech down. After all, we're on the back end here, hopefully the back end of this just massive surge in censorship. It's un-American. Free speech is central to democracy. Some of it's cultural, but maybe a little bit is the law as well with 230. We got to go in with a scalpel though, right? Because you don't want to accidentally do something that's going to result in more censorship or more bias or open up, websites to sort of frivolous litigation. So I think there's something we want to do here, but we want to do it in a scalpel-like approach.
Incoming chairman of the FCC, it's Brendan Carr. Go to @Brendan Carr FCC over on X, Brendan Carr USA elsewhere. Did we as Americans feel the difference when we had Ajit Pai and you, and we had the majority in the FCC during Trump? I believe that we had less censorship, although I say that, but it's kind of stupid because there was a ton of it, but we exposed more of it. When Biden took over and the FCC goes 3-2 Democrat, did we, the average American person, feel the difference in some form or fashion by an FCC that was leaning left rather than leaning right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was more the Biden-Harris administration itself. We've seen all this evidence now that shows that they were leaning on social media companies. Mark Zuckerberg sent a letter to Congress. I call it his mea culpa letter, where he sort of apologizes for censorship. That's got to come to an end, right? And I think it will. So I do think that part of this surge in censorship was driven by not just the administration, but the State Department has all of these NGOs that are involved in effectively censorship projects at this point. That's why I describe it broadly as the censorship cartel that we have to smash. It's individual decisions by companies. It's pressure from Biden administration. It's these so-called fact checkers that are out there like NewsGuard. I just sent them a letter or sent a letter on NewsGuard about a week or so ago. And we've got to address all of these components of the censorship cartel.
Yeah, I had a guest on yesterday who talked about NewsGuard going after the CDC, and they somehow forced the CDC to put up a study about autism or something that the CDC said, well, we didn't really do the studies, but NewsGuard somehow has that kind of power and leverage. How does an organization like that get that kind of power to direct advertisers not to advertise on X or yes, go advertise on Blue Sky because we like them better? How does an organization get that kind of power? It seems a bit rogue to me.
It is. Yeah, they've sort of just created for themselves this niche that they describe themselves as the internet's arbiter of truth, and they plug in on web browsers, they give websites ratings, and they give whole news outlets ratings, not individual stories alone. And the reporting I've seen says that they rate outlets from the CCP propaganda as more reliable than U.S. publications. They have on their advisory board one person that signed onto the Hunter Biden laptop is Russian disinformation letter. I mean, can you imagine an organization that says we're the arbiter of truth and our advisory board spread misinformation about such a critical election-related issue? They're under investigation right now by the House committees for infringement on First Amendment rights. These guys seem like some bad actors to me. And I would just say this: if you're a tech company and you're relying on NewsGuard in any way, you are putting your Section 230 protections seriously at risk.
And that's from the incoming chairman of the FCC, is Brendan Carr. Go to Brendan Carr FCC over on X. Let me ask you about internet showing up in rural areas and so on and so forth. I don't know if this is your oversight or your purview, but I do know this. In the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which didn't, they named it incorrectly, there were $40 billion, something like that, was allotted to go and extend internet to areas that didn't have it. Brendan, I don't think they did anything yet, have they?
No, it's been, I believe it's 1,103 days at this point that Vice President Harris has been leading, if you can use that word, this $42 billion program, and they still have put up a goose egg, not one person. So this is a program run out of the Commerce Department. So Howard Lutnick, who's going to be the Commerce Secretary, I've gotten to know through this process. He'll be in charge ultimately. But look, I think it goes back to the pretty basic. Vice President Harris broke it. We're going to fix it. She's run this program into a thicket of red tape. It is saddled with, DEI and other initiatives. We're going to have to get in there, get under the hood, get this thing fixed. But we're going to turn that around. And there's some threshold questions about, how much the money do we move over here, move over there. But in the main, we're going to get this thing fixed.
Well, there are still a lot of people that don't have the sort of internet that you and I have on a daily basis. It's extended and it's growing, but a lot of people don't have it. And through communication, I'm guessing it's your purview. They can't get the same information and entertainment and everything else that everybody else can get. We're not doing much through the air. Well, it's certainly not what we used to do. We're doing a lot now through the lines. So again, do you directly get to go through that 42 billion and figure out what they're doing and why it's slowed down and where the molasses is? Do you get to do that as the commissioner of this great commission, or do you work hand in hand with Commerce and whomever else?
Yeah, it's the latter. Commerce will be the lead, but we'll be at the table with them, providing our 2 cents and working collaboratively. But we have our other programs that are billion-dollar programs that are run exclusively by the FCC. You want to look at it. I mean, look, I just met this week with representatives from, the broadband builders and the telecom crews, and they're upset. They invested millions and millions of dollars in equipment, in drills, in hiring people based on the promise of this $42 billion coming down the pipe. And they've been left holding the bag on, high interest rates for this equipment that isn't being used because the Biden-Harris administration didn't deliver. And so we're going to work with these guys and get this thing turned around. But it's a mess what they created.
Incoming FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, great friend of the show, great friend of mine. Thank you for coming on today. Last quick question. I asked you earlier, did we feel the difference when Biden took over? You said yes. Then you explained it. What difference will we feel on January 20th going forward?
Yeah, it's going to be great. Look, we're going to unleash America's economic power again. We're going to streamline permitting. We're going to get some spectrum out there. We're going to unleash the space economy. All that's going to create jobs. We're going to get internet speeds going. It's going to be a great run. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a lot of work. I'm not really getting any sleep now, but I'm gonna get even less sleep then. But I can tell you this, Joe, I'm gonna give this job, I get a little emotional. I'm gonna give this job every single thing that I have, every ounce of my energy to get this thing turned around. I guarantee you that.
We totally believe you. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the country. I'm excited that we're going to have somebody at the FCC that's literally looking out for the American people now and not looking out for the bureaucrats. And I think that is the big difference. I'm super proud of you. Thanks a lot for making time today. I know that you were very busy. Brendan, go in there and kick some ass, my man.
I'll do it. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right. We appreciate you. We're back after this. Stay right here.